These are two of my favorite dice, and for good reason. They're both beautiful individually, but together they create something really special. The contrast between them isn't just visual, it represents something deeper that I wanted to try and capture in stone. Our warm quartzite D20 with its gold numbering represents light and hope, or the heart. Meanwhile, in contrast, our black and white gneiss, also with gold numbering, represents darkness and fear, the dagger. When together we have this beautiful effect of both sharp contrasting colors and meanings. These concepts are central to Daggerheart, an upcoming TTRPG from the team at Critical Role. As someone who's spent countless hours enjoying their content, I wanted to create something special to celebrate their new game. However, Daggerheart doesn't use D20s. Instead, they use 2D12, so I thought to celebrate the upcoming release, we can make a beautiful pair of D12s in similar colors. I have these two pieces of rough stone, one quartzite, one gneiss, that I think will be a perfect fit. So this is the classic D12 shape, a dodecahedron with 12 pentagonal faces. It's a classic design, but I think we can make something a bit more interesting that really showcases the stones. So let's head over to GemCut Studio and put together a new design. This is GemCut Studio. Over here on the left we have our cutting instructions, a 3D model of the stone we're cutting, and a render down here on the bottom. On the right we have our cut depth control, which we can use to start cutting into the stone. We also have an angle control and index rotation up here at the top. To start off, we need to change our index gear from 80 to 96. We're also going to set our symmetry to 6 since we'll be cutting 6 faces on each side. And then we can start cutting by using our depth slider, making sure that we're on the 96 so we're starting at the right position. When we have that where we want it, we can click cut to confirm, then we'll swap to the crown and repeat the same cut. So here's a basic starting shape, though it looks a bit pancaked. So we're going to adjust the angle of the cut to something a bit steeper. 60 looks pretty good, so we'll do that. We'll click cut to confirm. And then we'll switch to our crown and we'll do the same thing. This is much better, but there's a small change we can make that I think will improve the look a lot. By taking one of the sides and offsetting the index, we get this really cool alternating design. I personally think this looks a lot more interesting, but we can take it one step further by adding some bevels. Taking that same angle and cutting it in, we can see that we're a bit off. You could use math and geometry to figure out the exact angle that we need, but I hate math. So I just get it pretty close, then slowly rein it in until it looks just right. And 56.25 seems just about perfect. And then we'll repeat that for the bottom half as well. This looks pretty good. Now we just need to bevel the girdle, which are these outside 12 faces. These will be cut at 90 degrees. And bringing that in, you can see we're a bit off, but by changing the index to 4, you can see that we're only catching half of the girdle. So if we double our symmetry, we'll be able to catch all 12 faces. Then we'll click cut to confirm. And here's the full design. I think this looks really nice, and you can see it a bit better in the render below as if it were clear quartz. Pretty cool. So now we're just going to export the design and print it, and then we'll get working. First up, we're going to cut the stones on a 120 grit lap just to get a nice flat spot for dopping. We're using our trusty Loctite 5-minute epoxy resin to attach the dots to the stones. While that's curing up, we need to do a small bit of setup with our faceting machine. For this design, we need to swap out our standard 80 index wheel for a 96. You might be wondering, how do we know which index wheel to use? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. The index wheel needs to be divisible by the total number of faces on each side of the design, whether that's the pavilion or the crown. For example, a D20 has 10 faces per side, which divides evenly into 80. That's why the 80 index wheel is used for most standard polyhedral dice. But a D12 is different. Since 12 doesn't divide evenly into 80, we need to use a 96 wheel instead. So we can just take the 80 index wheel off of our fastening machine, including the wheel positioner, and swap them for the 96 index wheel set. This is fairly straightforward. It's just loosening and removing a few screws, then swapping it out and putting them back in. However, this completely ruins our alignment, so we need one more step to get everything dialed in. This is an alignment bar. It has a registration on the bottom that matches our dots, which allows us to load it into the quill. Then, by setting the index wheel to 96 and loosening the set screw, we can rotate the quill independently. Then, by placing the alignment bar flat on our master lap, we can tighten down the set screw and know that we are perfectly aligned. Now we're finally ready to start cutting. We're going to start off with a very rough preform, cutting the blocks into cylinders. This is a very important step as it allows us to find the maximum width of the stone, which is incredibly helpful because with some other math we can figure out the maximum height of our finished die and make sure that we have enough stone to work with. Okay, so the gneiss cut pretty easily, but switching to the quartzite slowed everything down a ton. Quartz and quartzite are pretty hard stones, so our old worn out topper lap just isn't cutting it. So we're going to open a brand new 120 grit lap and hopefully that'll speed things up a bit. I'm not sure how well this comes across on camera, but the difference in texture between the old and new lab is pretty drastic. So with the new lab back on, let's get back to cutting. Alright, our preforms are done, though it took a bit longer than I was hoping for. Our quartzite is definitely a bit shorter than the gneiss, so we're going to start off with that one so we can establish a set height, then we can just match that with the gneiss. I wanted to show you this as a reminder of why PP is so important. All of these little spots on the mask are rock dust and water, which without the mask would be deep in my lungs. Silicosis is a really nasty, uncurable disease that can result from breathing too much rock dust, so I'm going to take a couple extra steps anywhere I can to help prevent that. It's also important to take a few minutes periodically throughout the process to just clean up the machine in your workstation. Less dust stuck to things means less dust floating around. This is especially important before polishing. Those tiny dust particles can get caught on your polishing lab and throw some really nasty scratches into the stone right at the end. A few minutes of cleaning could potentially save hours and hours of recutting and polishing, which is well worth it in my opinion. With our quartzite, we'll be running through a gamut of laps, starting with our 120 grit to get the rough shape, followed by a 240 grit to cut through the damage caused by the 120, then a 600 to refine the shape further. From there, we'll move up to our 600 grit lightning lap to pre-polish the faces as well as cut in the bevels. Then finally on to our Spectra Ultra lap with cerium oxide mixture for polishing. Here's our final polish on the first side, and it looks so good. It's got this really cool, almost strobing effect with the bevels. Now we'll load it in our transfer jig and get started on the gneiss. For the gneiss, we're going to switch up the process just a little bit. The lightning lap does a really poor job of pre-polishing gneiss, so we're going to swap that out for a standard 3000 grit diamond pre-polishing lap before moving on to the Spectra Ultra lap and cerium oxide for polishing. So we have the first side cut and polished for both of our stones. Now we're just going to repeat the process for the second half. From there, we just need to cut out some numbering masks on our CNC machine, sandblast the numbers in, paint them, and we'll be all finished up. If you're enjoying watching these dice come to life, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Your support helps me to continue making more content like this. When I look at these dice, I imagine ASMR twin sisters who walk opposing paths. The warm quartzite brings to mind an ASMR bard of hope, her skin carrying a subtle golden luminescence. In the grand halls of cities, she weaves songs of courage and resilience, her voice carrying the warmth of dawn. Each performance a beacon, drawing those lost in darkness towards her light, while golden threads of magic dance around her like rays of sunshine. To her, every story of despair is just waiting for its moment of triumph. Her sister, reflected in the black and white gneiss, chose a darker road as a fallen ASMR rogue shadow dancer. Through the twilight streets and hidden passages, she moves like ink through water, her motions a deadly dance of precision and purpose. The gold flecks on her eyes still match her sister's glow, but where one illuminates, the other unveils. She knows that the deepest truths can only be found in shadow, and that every light casts a darkness that holds its own wisdom. Together, they remind us that neither path is complete without the other, much like the dice themselves. What character or characters do you think would match these dice? Let me know in the comments below. Here are the finished dice, and I am so happy with how they turned out. They're absolutely beautiful, and the Heart and Dagger turned out perfect. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. Now, on to the final shots.